Port Adelaide.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Is the Prime Minister aware that yesterday the Queensland Premier slammed his plan to force Queensland to privatise its electricity assets, saying, and I quote, "If he wants to start a war with Queensland, well, he's got one, because we're not selling our assets." It just goes to show that they have no idea when it comes to a national energy policy. Isn't the Queensland Premier correct when she says this government has no idea when it comes to national energy policy?
The Treasurer, Mr. Cool.
Mr Speaker, as the Prime Minister just said, Labor shamelessly and disgracefully today used a tactic to shut down debate on our legislation to prevent misconduct in the energy sector, a tactic that hasn't been used for 30 years, Mr Speaker. Now, you know what happened 30 years ago? It was so long ago. So long ago. But you know what happened 30 years ago? Labor delivered a surplus, Mr Speaker. 30 years ago was the last time Labor delivered a surplus, when Taylor Swift was born, Mr Speaker. Now, the reality is we have legislation before the parliament which will deliver lower prices for Australian families, lower energy prices, a more stable system and a better deal for businesses. And the member for Hume and our government have been driving changes across the sector, which have already seen some of the energy companies reduce their standing offers by 10%, delivering major savings to businesses and to households. We saw the prices come down in July, Queensland and South Australia from July of this year. We've passed legislation through this House to abolish the limited merits review, which, if the Labor Party had done it when they were in government, would have saved consumers $6 billion. We've prevented shortfalls in the domestic gas market that Labor set up a shortfall for the domestic market when they ignored their warnings in their own energy paper back in 2012 and ignored the warnings from AEMO. We, on the other hand, have ensured sufficient gas into the domestic market. And we're putting in place storage, backup for more renewables that are coming online, and the Minister for Energy is working with his state counterparts to get a reliability guarantee put in place. So, Mr Speaker, when Labor was last in office, electricity prices doubled. When the Labor Party was in office in South Australia, they had a big experiment. We're seeing in other states, like in Victoria, following the closure of Hazelwood, wholesale prices go up by more than 80%. We saw the same thing happen in South Australia after the closure of Northern. This is a very serious matter. This is not a time to stand with the energy companies. This is the time to stand with Australian families and businesses.